Sanam, neo-natives. Hope y'all are having a fucking awesome ass day. So in the spirit of the holidays, today I wanted to read a section from my book, A Dream of True Time. Enjoy. Terry awoke to Eden standing over him, shaking him awake. The room was dark, but he could still make out her pink hair in the low light. Remius was gone from the end of the bed and the door was open. "Thank God you woke up," Eden whispered, kissing him with relief. "I thought you weren't going to. It took several minutes of shaking you for you to wake." "What time is it?" Terry whispered back. "It's a little bit after midnight. Come on, get dressed. We gotta go." Her voice was urgent. "Where are we going?" Terry asked, still not fully awake yet. Eden handed him jeans and a sweatshirt as he slowly pulled himself out of bed. "Okay," Eden explained, still whispering. "I wasn't really taking care of stuff at my apartment today. I was discussing your situation with a friend of mine that owns that club. You know, the one I told you about? Anyway, I heard about those break-ins in Rob's neighborhood. Also, most likely those three that attacked you that night I showed up to help you. It's only a matter of time before they come back here again, stronger and more ready for us. But they only want you, so if you're not here, they won't have a reason to attack Rob and Mothman. Hopefully. So we think it's best that we, hide out in another dimension for a while until we can figure out the best course of action to take next. Hopefully, that'll send what's-her-name, Maya, on a wild goose chase to find you, and they'll be off track for a while. I don't know. That's the best plan I got. We can't tell anyone, not even Remius. For our safety, no one can know where we are, except for my friend Darren, who owns the club." Terry was all dressed and ready to go. "If you think it's best, then I trust you. Where is Remius anyway?" he asked as he grabbed a winter coat from the closet. The snow was still coming down hard outside his window. "He's downstairs sleeping on the couch," Eden replied. "And my bedroom door was open when you got here?" "Yeah? Why?" "Huh. Nothing, never mind," Terry said, having a thought and then letting it go. "Should we leave?" Without answering, Eden turned and quietly left the room. Terry followed close behind her. "Why is it so cold out here?" Terry thought. Then he noticed the window next to his parents' bedroom was open again, a chilling breeze flowing into the house. Terry tiptoed over to close and lock it. "That's fucking weird," he said to himself. "So is this the dream? Or was the dream what I just came from?" He shook the thought from his head. "Come on, Terry, you don't have time to go down that rabbit hole right now." He followed close after Eden, tiptoeing down the stairs, careful not to wake Remius or Terry's two human friends. They exited through the front door, closed it as quietly as possible, and locked it behind them. "Give me your keys," Eden said, holding out her hand. She was wearing a pair of knit gloves with the fingers cut off. "I know where the place is, so I'm driving." Terry handed over the van keys. The night was dark, and the snow was thick. Their breath hung in the air like clouds of smog. The powder crunched under their boots. Eden got into the driver's seat, and Terry took his place as the passenger. She started the car and pulled away from the house, the beams from the headlights illuminating the large white flakes pouring through the air. "What day is it anyway?" Terry asked, staring out the window at the white landscape. "Actually," Eden answered as if she was far away herself, "it's Christmas Eve." Huh. Terry thought about this, remembering Christmas Eve just 1 year before. There had been a tree up in his living room, presents under it. He had been eager to go to sleep early that night so he could wake up early to eat Eggs Benedict and open gifts with his parents. He guessed that there were some days that he didn't despise them. Remembering this, he didn't feel any type of way about it. Terry didn't feel sad at the loss of this holiday and the loss of his parents. There was only a deep acceptance and neutrality toward this change. Then he asked, "Are you sure this club will be open? It being Christmas Eve and all?" Eden looked over at Terry and smiled. "Trust me, they'll be open." She took Terry's left hand in her right and laced her fingers through his. As they squeezed their warm hands together tightly, they drove on toward Chicago and Boys Town. Angel fuck? Terry stood looking up at the pink-lighted neon sign above a black door. The sign spelled out one word in all lowercase letters. Angel fuck. Eden laughed. "Yep, that's the name. Kind of catchy, don't you think?" "How did they get away with having a name like that displayed right on a public street?" Terry asked. Eden shrugged. "Doesn't seem like many people even notice it, except of course for the people in the know, which now includes you and me. Come on, let's go." She opened the black door. Behind it was a narrow staircase that led down to a second door, which was pink. "So why is this club open on Christmas Eve?" Terry asked as they went down toward the pink door. She looked back over her shoulder and replied, "Let's just say they have a Christmas fetish." Terry didn't know what that was supposed to mean, but he would soon find out. Eden opened the door and led him into the bowels of Angel Fuck. What was beyond that door was a scene unlike anything Terry had ever witnessed before. He had never even been to a nightclub in his life, let alone one where people played out their Christmas fetish. Surprisingly, there was no bouncers at the door screening people who came in. Terry's jaw hung open as he took in the sights. The room was huge, like the room of a warehouse, and there were 2 floors. The ground floor was basically a giant dance floor. The lighting was very dark, and most of the luminescence came from strobe lights and multicolored lasers flashing through the space. The second floor was like a balcony halfway between the floor and the roof. It was open with a railing so that people up there could look down on the dance floor below. Electronic dance music blared through the giant speakers. It was being played by a DJ dressed in an elf costume made of leather. The stage he spun from was all the way on the other side of the room, farthest from the entrance. The strangest part of the whole thing was the people and their costumes. There was imagery from Santa and his elves, even some people dressed up as horny reindeer with huge cocks. There were elevated platforms around the dance floor with cages on top. Inside those cages were dancers dressed in sexy Christmas outfits. One girl was basically naked, but she had pointed ears like an elf, and scattered at her feet were unwrapped presents. The contents of those gifts were an assortment of sex toys. Another dancer was dressed as Mrs. Claus. She had on the red fuzzy dress with white around the edges, but she was naked underneath. Her shaved pussy exposed beneath the skirt as she danced. On the shaved skin above her vaginal lips was tattooed a bow as if tied on top of a present. There were a lot of girls wearing strap-ons as part of their ensemble, and some of the guys were wearing huge fake tits, bouncing around under long beards. Terry could see that there were real orgies going on as well. People on the dance floor were actually fucking. One guy dressed like Rudolph had his dick hanging out of his reindeer onesie and was getting sucked off by a guy dressed like Jesus with a crown of thorns on his head. Now Terry noticed that there were actually a lot of people dressed in different iterations of Jesus. He also saw a few wise men and maybe 1 or 2 Marys and Josephs. One corner of the room caught his attention, where one guy who looked like Jesus was tied to a St. Andrew's cross. He was naked and had a crown of thorns that wrapped around a pair of horns that seemed to grow out of his forehead. There was a woman standing in front of him wearing a white dress and head covering, possibly could have been dressed like Virgin Mary. She was playing with the Jesus's cock and balls with a riding crop. "There's Jesuses being molested in here," Terry said after he'd taken in the whole scene. "I ain't never seen that shit before." They both laughed and Eden took Terry's hand. Would you rather it be baby Jesus being molested? She winked at him. Now that's just wrong. Come on. Come, my love. Eden started leading Terry through the crowd and throng of erotic energy. All of the sexual ecstasy was entering his energy field and making him feel orgasmic. It was more than a pleasant feeling. They made their way through the humans that were dancing and fucking and cosplaying, and the ones coming into subspace and back. She looked back at Terry and said, Darren's office is in the back there, past the stage. They got through the crowd without being pulled into an orgy. Darren's office was indeed past the stage and also hidden behind a curtain. Eden looked around to make sure no one was following them. Satisfied, she swept the curtain aside and they went in and through the door beyond. Ah, Eden, I've been expecting you, Darren said from behind his desk. The room was huge to be an office. It was more like a lounge with a desk to take care of the business stuff of the club. The lighting in the office was low and ambient, almost as dark as the rest of the club. The carpet was dark blue, and several red couches were placed around a table on which stood a few half-drunk glasses of champagne. The bottle was there too, empty. There was also a bookshelf against one wall with lots of occult-looking books on it. Darren stood up from his desk when Eden and Terry entered the room. He was a tall black man, over 6 feet. His long dreadlocks came all the way down to his waist. Darren was muscular. Terry could see from the tone of his arms, chest, and abdomen. Over his upper body, he was wearing only a leather vest, which was open in the front. His pants were black bondage pants with straps and metal buckles hanging off of them. In comic contrast to the rest of his outfit, he wore a red Santa hat on his head. Welcome to my lair, Darren said as he came over to greet them. Terry shook his hand and noticed a long scar on the man's face, starting above his left eyebrow and going all the way down his cheek. It's nice to meet you, Terry said. Likewise, Darren replied. Any friend of Eden is a friend of mine. Eden embraced her friend and kissed him on the lips. This wasn't a surprise to Terry since they were polyamorous, and he didn't feel uncomfortable about it either. So Terry, do you like my club? Darren asked, smiling a very white grin. Terry nodded. It's fantastic. I love it, actually. Angelfuck. That's a great name. I'm glad you approve, Darren replied, and I hope you both have more time to explore it once the danger has passed for you. Eden has told me all about you. You're a very powerful individual, I must admit. I felt it right away when you entered the room. So you must have a soul mind too, Terry said, stating the obvious. Guilty as charged. Now, if I'm correct, and we're all in agreement, you want to hide out in another dimension, and I can help you out here on my end while you're there. I'll do what I can. Eden has briefed me on all of it. The 3 thugs from the Dark Tethers, etc. Anyway, I guard the portal to the kingdom of the Stone Queen. The Stone Queen's kingdom? Terry asked, raising his eyebrows. Yes, here. Darren went over to the bookshelf and slid it to the side. There was a small door about 3 feet high behind it. Behind this door is the portal. Terry laughed. Did you steal that from Being John Malkovich? Darren laughed at the joke and said, You're funny, Terry. I like you. What's Being John Malkovich? Eden asked. Never mind, Darren replied. That's not important. What's important right now, I think, is you two knowing if you'll be able to get back when the time comes. Don't worry. You will. Okay, good. That's good, Eden said, squeezing Terry's arm. They were both in agreement on this decision. What are we going to experience in there? Terry wanted to know. I can't tell you much, Darren answered. Only that it's strange. Oh yeah? Strange? That's very specific, Terry said sarcastically. Are you ready for this next adventure, my love? Eden asked, now taking hold of his hand again. Terry smiled and kissed her. I'm ready, and I'm glad it's you that I'm going on this journey with. Okay, you lovebirds, Darren said as he opened the tiny door. Behind it was the portal, a spiral vortex of blue energy. The gate is all yours, my darlings. He stepped out of the way and to let them enter. Eden went first, getting down on her hands and knees. She crawled forward and slipped in, disappearing into the blue beyond. Terror was right behind her and was sucked into the vortex quickly, out of the hollow dimension, into the kingdom of the Stone Queen. What surprises would they find there, and what new lessons would they learn about themselves? Only Timestress knew. Darren closed the small door after them, and then slid the bookshelf back into its place. A dream of true time. I hope you all enjoyed that little reading today. Have a happy holidays, whatever it is that you guys do, and celebrate life every fucking day with every fucking breath and every fucking moment. I love y'all, Neo Natives. You can get a copy of my book, my novel, A Dream of True Time, and my other books on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com or whatever the fuck website you like to buy books from. I love y'all so much.